Michael Popok, Legal AF Hot Take. Gather around. I'm going to tell you a story about Jesse James. Not that one. Jesse James Rumson, also known as Sedition Panda. Sedition Panda is off the streets by way of the Department of Justice because he, wearing a giant panda head, decided that he was going to not only participate in the Jan 6 insurrection, but attack police officers along the way. He's been convicted at a bench trial by no other than Carl Nichols. I'll talk about Judge Nichols in a minute. You may remember that Judge Nichols is the same judge that convicted Steve Bannon, the podcaster, but let him out on release while he appealed his issues. But he's also the same judge who at the trial level decided that the Department of Justice had overcharged many of the Jan 6 defendants and that the use of obstruction of an official proceeding was not appropriate to use against Jan 6 defendants because they didn't actually get their hands on the electoral ballots that were being counted on Jan 6, and therefore they cannot be held liable for that particular statute, which comes out of a white-collar criminal set of codes. That issue, which is brought up in a case called Fisher versus the United States, started in Judge Nichols' courtroom and is now, we're waiting for the decision from the United States Supreme Court, and it impacts Donald Trump because 2 out of his 4 charges are for obstruction of an official proceeding. But I digress, same judge. But you now have hashtag Sedition Panda, aka Jesse James Rumson, being represented by Anthony Sabatini. Anthony Sabatini represents a lot of MAGA Jan 6 insurrectionists. And in a bench trial, they didn't even bother with a jury trial. They just wanted the judge to make the decision. And he found, beyond a reasonable doubt, based on the prosecution's evidence, that this guy committed 8 different criminal charges. The judge had no problem with any of the charges against the headless panda in this case. 2 felonies, 6 misdemeanors, including civil disobedience and assault. Now, Sabatini looks the judge in the eye and says, there's not a fair trial for Jan 6 defendants in this circuit, in the D.C. Circuit Court, certainly not in this courtroom. I mean, that's a bold statement to say for a defense lawyer who didn't even think enough about his case to try it in front of a jury. Why don't you try, Sabatini, just a comment, why don't you try your case in front of 9 people in a federal jury and see if you can get one to believe there's reasonable doubt instead of electing not to have a jury trial and try it out before Judge Nichols. So there, I don't really understand if you had a lot of faith in your case, but the problem is there was overwhelming evidence against Jesse James Rumson, Sedition Panda, including a number of photographs and video stills of the guy wearing a panda hat, a panda head. Not a full costume. I mean, he's not insane. Just a panda head that he lost apparently in the scuffle when he entered through the Northwest Stairs into the Capitol. He then got subdued after fighting with Capitol Police inside, but they put him in handcuffs, but not, real metal handcuffs. They put him in like ties, like Ziplocs. He got outside somehow, having lost his panda head, and he got other rioters to help him get his hand restraints off. Now he's free again because they freed him, and now he starts attacking the police again, a nude, at one point pulling a police shield, a face mask, off of a police officer and making him fall to the ground. Right? And then he claims, along with Sabatini, that there's reasonable doubt, despite hundreds of hours of video of the guy wearing a panda hat, or when he's not wearing a panda hat, doing other things that are terrible, and video stills and Getty images and photographic evidence and testimonial evidence. In fact, the judge at one point looked this guy in the eye and no, he was not wearing his panda. I always, as I'm telling this story, I think of like Marshmello, like the DJ Marshmello. Like if he had been, indicted on something, would he show up in court with that giant metal marshmallow head? I don't think so. But the panda guy didn't either. So panda guy comes, they're always so, they're not contrite yet. When he's sentenced in September, he'll be contrite. But here the lawyer was all piss and vinegar. And the judge said, you're in convicting him of all the counts. I mean, even this judge found all the counts were appropriate. He said that your defense is absurd and patently incompatible with objective evidence and testimony. Meaning all of the, I'm going to show you now, just in the indictment itself were dozens of photographs of this guy doing really bad things, sometimes wearing his panda head, and sometimes not. I'm sorry, I just can't stop saying this guy was wearing a panda. Nothing like, complete cluelessness about, like, I don't want to get caught. Despite the video cameras and social media, and I'm FaceTiming at the time, and I got a giant panda head on. Maybe I won't get caught. Wrong. Now, I will do another report on Sedition Panda, Jesse James Rumson, in September when he's sentenced. And I assure you that as hot and bothered and hot under the collar that Anthony Sabatini, his lawyer, was, you can't get a fair trial, Judge, anywhere here, especially with all the evidence against my client. Why didn't you ask for a jury? Oh, that wouldn't work either. When it's time for sentencing, you're going to see, I assure you, a very weepy, chastened guy. He's going to say, oh, Judge, it was a momentary lapse when I decided to wear a panda head and attack the Capitol, and my family and my elderly mother and whatever, and please, mercy on the court. Watch. Very few of them don't cry and blubber like a baby when it's time for sentencing. And this guy could go away for attacking police 5 years, 8 years, 10 years. I mean, that could happen. But I assure you, as much of a tough guy as he and his lawyer were during the bench trial, and so tough he didn't even want to try it with a jury, he won't be when it comes time for his sentencing, which I will follow. Now, to answer the question that often comes up in my hot takes, what takes so long? Why don't they just sentence him right there? Well, there's a process. There's a pre-trial and probation department that has to put together a report to the judge. And in that report, they go through the federal sentencing guidelines. It's a giant book. It's about yay big. You're talking about 5-6 inches worth of single-spaced pages in there. And you both sides go through it and try to determine what's the appropriate range of sentences based on the guy's past history, the crime that he committed, how many people were injured, whether there's terrorism is involved. There's different enhancements. There's different upward departures and downward departures until you start with a base level offense. It's like a little bit of a children's game, except it results in somebody being incarcerated for a period of time. So let's say the base level offense for this is 20. And then maybe there's a terrorism enhancement that's appropriate. Maybe there's a violence enhancement that's appropriate. If he's a two-time loser, he's had a track record of committing crimes, there's an enhancement. There's a deduction. Did he help? Did he confess? No. So there's points for that. Did he cooperate? No. So he doesn't get deductions for that. And then it just lands on a number. You look over on the chart, it tells you the range. And then there's victim impact statements that have to be acquired by this department that puts together a report, including that police officer that was severely injured by Jesse James Rumson. And then that gets all put together. And then there's recommendations about where he should be put in prison, what prison location. And then the federal government Department of Justice makes recommendations. The other side puts together a report. They say, oh, he should get probation. He should be let out. This is all big misunderstanding. And then the judge has a hearing, having given about 90 days for all of these things to be accumulated. And then the sentence happens, and then they're immediately remanded into custody of the federal marshals and sent off to the Bureau of Prisons for assignment. Sometimes they start in a detention center. I think in D.C., they're starting in the jail. There's not like a great detention center. And then they're sent off to their permanent assignment. So that's the process. I wanted to kind of give a little bit of a Patreon, legal AF, teachable moment there while I had some time. So if you like what I'm doing here on Michael Popok, give me a thumbs up and a comment. It helps with the ratings, keeps us all on the air. And then you can follow me on my podcast, Legal AF, at the intersection of law and politics. We put together the top 4 or 5 stories at that intersection. We bring it to you right here on Legal AF and on the MeidasTouch YouTube channel and on all major audio podcast platforms, wherever you get them from. On Wednesdays, I co-anchor it with Karen Friedman Agnifilo, a former prosecutor. On Saturdays with my co-founder and co-anchor Ben Meiselas of the MeidasTouch Network. And then if you like what I'm doing, you can go over to the YouTube channel for MeidasTouch and look under contributors. I think I'm number 2 there, and under playlist, and you'll find my entire body of work. And as I said, we do a Patreon. If you want to learn more about the law at the intersection of law and politics, patreon.com/legalaf. I do Popok talks, sort of like a law school class, and a TED Talk had a baby. And then Ben Meiselas does some Professor Ben's, and we teach you about civil versus federal, state versus criminal, procedural, class actions, civil rights, constitutional rights, and the rest right there. It's made for the non-lawyer, but lawyers find it to be useful as well. So until my next hot take, until my next Legal AF, until my next Patreon exclusive content, this is Michael Popok reporting. Heary, heary, Legal AF Law Breakdown is now in session. Go beyond the headlines and get a deep dive into the important legal concepts you need to know, and we discuss every day on Legal AF. Exclusive content you won't find anywhere else, all for the price of a couple of cups of coffee. Join us at patreon.com/legalaf. That's patreon.com/legalaf.